All right, hello, Miss Nguyen here to do our slope-intercept form notes. Thank you for your patience in waiting for this to get done. Let's just go ahead and get right to it. Okay. To write an equation for a linear relationship, we use the slope, what we call slope-intercept form, which is kind of like the way the equation has to be written, right? So that is y equals mx plus b. Now, last week we spent a lot of time trying to find m, so hopefully you remember what that is, but that is our slope. And b is our y-intercept. So you could probably guess from the name, like the fact that it's called slope-intercept form, but slope-intercept form has to include the slope and the y-intercept. That's why it's called what it is. Okay, quick refresher, the y-intercept is where the graphed line crosses, is intercepted by the y-axis, and the slope is the rate of change. Okay, and that's all stuff that we learned last week. So for graphs, your process isn't going to change a whole lot. The main difference is that instead of just giving your answer as like the slope is a number, the y-intercept is a number, you have to take those two things and put them together into an equation, right? So if we look at the graph, first thing we can notice is the y-intercept. Remember, our y-axis is the one that goes up and down, and our x-axis is the one that goes side to side. So if we're looking for where this graphed line touches the y-axis, we follow it, follow it, follow it right there. So that means our y-intercept is 3. So now to find our slope, remember we have to pick 2 points. We can use the y-intercept as one of those points. So at this point, x is 0 and y is 3. So we need to pick one other point. Here's a perfect point right here. At this point, x is 4 and y is 5. Now we have our 2 points. Let's go ahead and label them. So if this is our first point, this is our second point. And remember, it being the first or second point matters because that affects how we label them. So here's x2, y2, x1, y1. Okay, now we have that. We can put that into our equation. M equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And I'm going to highlight so you can see more easily what is supposed to go where, because that is very important. Okay, so hopefully by doing that, you can see this y1 is 3. This is going to go here. Y2 is 5. That's going to go here. X2 is 4. That will go here where the yellow part is. And X1 is 0. They're both green. Okay, so we're going to put those numbers right where they're supposed to go. This is why we label, and it's so important that you put the right numbers in the right places. Okay, so y2 is 5 minus y1, which is 3, divided by x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is 0. 5 minus 3 is 2. 4 minus 0 is 4. And then we have 2/4. Now we need to reduce this fraction. So when we do that, it becomes 1/2. Let me highlight these again too. Okay, so you can see each number went exactly where it's supposed to go. Okay, so now we know our slope is 1/2 and our y-intercept is 3. Our equation is supposed to be y equals mx plus b. Well, this is m, so it's going to go right there. And this is b, so that's going to go right there. So all we have to do is replace the m and the b with the numbers that we got. So our equation is going to be y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Now, because it's plus b like that, if your y-intercept was a negative number, then it would just be minus. And so, because it would effectively be plus minus b, but we don't want to write that. So we will plus a minus is the same as subtraction. And you'll see that in some of the other problems. Okay. The second one is pretty much the exact same process. Y-intercept. Here's 10. Need to pick 2 points for our slope. Let's just go ahead and use 2 different points since they gave us a couple of them. So here, x is 5, y is 8. And then this one, x is 10, y is 6. Okay, so after we have our 2 points, now we can label them. I like to put the second point on top because when you're doing the subtraction, it's a lot easier to tell that you have all your numbers in one place. Like, you know, it's supposed to be y2 minus y1, so it's 8 minus 6. You know what I mean? And then 5 minus 10 on the bottom. So if you have your points labeled up or lined up like that, then it just makes it a lot easier to check yourself when you are using the formula. Okay, so m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So it's 8 minus 6 divided by 5 minus 10. So again, I will highlight. So you can see that all the numbers are where they're supposed to be. Okay. So we do that. 8 minus 6 is 2. 5 minus 10 is negative 5. Now, when you have a fraction, if either the numerator or the denominator is negative, then the whole thing is negative. So the fact that we have a negative 5 in the denominator means our slope is just negative 2/5, like that. So it doesn't matter where you put the negative, but usually by convention, we either put it outside like this or on the negative 2, like that. You don't usually see mathematicians and teachers write it where it's left like this with the negative on the bottom. It just conventions, you know. All right, so that means that our slope is negative 2/5. So our equation, there's slope, there's the y-intercept. So our equation becomes y equals negative 2/5 x plus 10. Okay, and so like I said, this isn't too wildly different from what we've been doing. You just have to present your answer in a little bit of a different way. Okay. Now, we just showed how to find slope from 2 points. This is the formula that we've still been using. M equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, right? So that part hasn't really changed. Now, remember, the 2 points we pick from a graph are represented with x1 for the first point and y1, sorry, x1 and y1 for the first point, and x2, y2 for the second point. That's why they're labeled with the 1s and the 2s to show this is from the first point, this is from the second point, right? So after we find the slope, we can find the y-intercept. So write our equation in slope-intercept form, but leave the b since we don't know what that is yet. Then you'll pick one of the 2 points and plug the x and y coordinates into the equation, and then solve for b. So these are for problems where they don't give us a graph. They're just going to give us 2 points and say, okay, what is the equation for the line that passes through these 2 points or something like that. So we can find the slope by using the formula we've already been using, But when there's no graph, you can't just look to see where the y-intercept is. So we're going to have to do a little bit of equation solving to solve for b. Just remember, b is the y-intercept. Now, here's a note to try and save you a little bit of trouble. If one of the points given has 0 for the x-coordinate, then we don't have to solve for the y-intercept because it's already been given to us. Okay, remember, the y-intercept is the value of y when x equals 0. So if we have a point that's like 0 something, then that means they already gave us the y-intercept. And you'll see that in a second. So let's look at these examples. Here we go. So there's no graphs. Okay, so when don't have to worry about the graph, that means that we have to look at the points, and usually we have to solve for slope first and then use the slope to help us find the y-intercept. However, you see this point is 0, 5. That means they already gave us the slope, or sorry, they already gave us the y-intercept. So now we do not have to solve for the y-intercept. We know that it's 5 because it's 0 is the x value, 5 is the y value. So when x equals 0, y is 5. So 5 is the y-intercept. Okay. And then we're just going to label x1, y1, x2, y2, right? And then the rest of this part is exactly the same. We're going to use this formula, m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. y2 is 10, y1 is 5, x2 is 5, x1 is 0. 10 minus 5 is 5. 5 minus 0 is 5. Actually, this is not a lot of space. I'll put it over here. So 5 divided by 5. When you divide any number by itself, hopefully you know this, you get 1. So that means our slope is 1. Now, when you have 1 in front of a number, like officially this should be, if this, because we're using y equals mx plus b, m is 1, so you could write y equals 1x plus b. But remember, when there's a 1 in front of a variable like that, we don't bother writing the 1. It's just convention. So our answer is just going to be y equals x plus 5. And if it was a negative slope, like if our slope was -1, it'd be the same. We would write negative x plus b. Okay, so we don't write the ones there. And it's important for you to remember that it's there, but we don't actually write it. Okay, so that was an easier question because we didn't have to solve for the y-intercept, but let's look at one where we do. So if you look at these 2 points, x is 3, x is 6, so there's no y-intercept here. We're going to have to solve for it. Before we do that, let's go ahead and find the slope first. Okay, same song, different chorus. M equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. y2 is -2, y1 is -3, x2 is 6, x1 is 3. Okay, remember adding or subtracting a negative is the same as adding. So this becomes -2 plus 3. -2 plus 3 is 1. 6 minus 3 is 3. So this is our slope right here. I'm going to highlight this in blue because we're going to need it a little bit later. Okay, so now we have found our slope and we need to solve to figure out our y-intercept. Okay, so to do that, we need a point. So we're going to pick one of these 2 points, the x1 and y1 or x2 and y2. It does not matter which one you choose. You will get the same answer. I'm going to go ahead and use the x1 and y1. So I'm writing the coordinate out, and I'm using colors because in a little bit you'll see it's important. All right, so this is our y coordinate. This is our x coordinate. And then remember our equation is going to be y equals mx plus b. Well, we have y in green equals, our m is blue. We just found that, m x plus b. We don't know what b is, so we're going to try and figure that out. Okay, so we need to plug these numbers right in where they're supposed to go. So here is y is -3, m is 1/3, and x is 3. So all we are going to do is plug those numbers in exactly where they're supposed to go. So we have -3 equals 1/3 times x plus b. And I'm trying really hard to make these b's look like b's and not 6's, because you don't want to think that it's a 6 and then do all your math wrong. So trying. All right, so there's the 1/3. Oh, I wrote x instead of 3. My bad. Okay, there's 3. There's -3. Okay, so hopefully you can see that all of our numbers went exactly where they're supposed to go. Okay, we solved for the slope, but the 3 and the -3 just came from this point right here. Okay, we didn't make up those numbers. That's where we got it. We just picked one of the points. We could have used 6 and -2. So we could have had 6 instead of the 3 and -2 instead of the -3. We will end up getting the same answer. So it's kind of, here's where you can exercise a little bit of creativity in picking a point. So now we're going to solve this equation because now we have one variable, b. We don't know what it is, so we need to solve for it. Okay, 1/3 times 3. Let's go ahead and solve that out. 1/3 times 3. If you have 3 slices of a cake, like you cut a cake into 3 slices and then you keep all 3 of those slices together, you have a whole cake. So this is just -3 equals 1 plus b. Now, we want b to be by itself because our answer for like what is the y-intercept has to be like b equals something, right? If we have something right now, all we're saying is that -3 is equal to b plus 1. That isn't telling us what b is. So to get b by itself, we need to get rid of this by doing opposite operations. Right now, this 1 is being added to b. So we want to do the opposite of adding, which is subtracting. So we will subtract the 1. When we do that, we'll just have b, but since we did it on this side, we have to also do it on the other side of the equal sign so that both sides stay the same. So when we subtract 1 minus 1, that turns into 0. So now we have b by itself. -3 minus 1, it's getting more negative because it's a -3. You subtract another one, it becomes more negative. So this is -4. Now, if you have doubts about this, like you're not good at working with negatives, just put it into your calculator. Open up your Desmos calculator and type in -3 minus 1. I won't judge you. It's okay. It's better to do that and get the right answer. All right. So we did that. So we're done. That's our y-intercept is -4. Our slope is 1/3. So our equation is y equals 1/3 x. And remember how it's plus b, this is negative. So instead of, plus -4, you'll just write -4. Okay. Now this is one of the most complicated things we're going to do this year. So if you can get this, like you could do anything. Okay. But it's very important that you label all your numbers and you put all of them in the right places. All right. Moving on. Finding slope and y-intercept from a table. Now this really is not going to be very different from what we've already been doing. Okay. When we're given a table, that's basically a list of points. So all we have to do is pick 2 points from the table. Oops. Pick 2 points from the table, and then follow the same steps for writing the slope-intercept form equation from 2 points. So we're going to do exactly the same thing as we just did. Literally, the only difference is that now you have to pick 2 points from the table because the table gives you choices. So you get more creative freedom. You can choose which 2 points to use to find slope. And then you can choose one of the points to use to find the y-intercept, So you just have more choices. That's all. Now, remember, if one of the points listed in the table has 0, for the x-coordinate, then we don't have to solve for the y-intercept. It's already been given to us. So same as with the points. Okay. Now, I know y'all don't like to do this. You need to read these problems carefully because you beware of tables where y is in the left column and x is in the right. Because sometimes test makers will do that just to mess with you and make sure that you're paying attention. So if you accidentally use y values for x or x values for y, it's going to ruin the whole thing. Okay, so let's see an example. Now, I'm going to do number 2 because number 1, you can see that this already has the y-intercept given to you. And so I want to show one of the more tricky problems for you. And you can try that one on your own a bit later. Okay, so here, number 2, we have this table. So the first step is we want to pick 2 points. Usually I've found over the years that students like to just go with whatever the first 2 points are. Let's do that. Now, this is one of those where y is in the first column and x is in the second column. So you have to be careful when you're labeling. Okay, if this is our first point, this is our first point or second point. This is our y1, x1, y2, x2. Got to be very careful with that. Now that we've chosen that, we can find our slope. Make sure you leave yourself enough room to solve for the y-intercept too. So m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. y2 minus y1, y2 is 90, y1 is 50, x2 is 4, x1 is 2, right? 90 minus 50 is 40, 4 minus 2 is 2. I almost wrote 20. That's not right. Now we have 40 divided by 2, which is 20, right? So we have our slope. So now we need to solve to find the y-intercept. I'm going to color code everything again. All right, just for funsies, I'm going to use a different point. So let's use the second point instead. So that's our x. Oops. Oh, yeah, see? I did it. I made the mistake that I said not to do. 90 is our y-coordinate. 4 is our x-coordinate. Almost got me, even though I've done this problem so many times. Okay, so we have that. And we know it's supposed to be y equals m x plus b. We will highlight. So here's our slope. Here's our y value. Here's our x value. So we are just going to take these 3 numbers and put them into that equation. So y is 90 equals 20 times 4 plus b. So we just put all of those numbers in. And now we can start solving for b. 20 times 4 is 80. Again, if you can't do that in your head, just use the calculator. You're in 8th grade. You can do that now. 80 plus b, that's not 6. And we didn't do anything to the 90, so we leave that alone. Okay, now we want b to be by itself, so we need to get rid of this excess baggage. 80 is being added, so we need to subtract it from both sides. I saw a lot of students yesterday when they were practicing kind of stop at this point and say, oh, well, b is 90. No, I can't do that. Gotta get rid of this first. When we do that, this is 0. So now we have b by itself because this becomes b plus 0, right? So now b is alone. 90 minus 80 is 10. That gives us our y-intercept. So then our equation is simply y equals 20x plus 10. Okay, so really the main thing that we've introduced with these notes is having to solve to find the y-intercept because you can't just look at the graph anymore. Okay, um, and the fact that you are writing your answers as an equation. So after you find m and you find b, right, you can write an equation with them. y equals mx plus b, right? So it's just a little bit of an extension of the tools that we've already learned about. All right, that's about it. These next 4 problems were independent practice, so you can go ahead and try those on your own. And if you need to check with me, you can. And I will see you in class. See you in the next video.